defining those values really have made it so much more clear now. So when we are interviewing, we're looking for specific things, on both sides, negative and positive, that really tie to those core values.
You have to know your numbers and the metrics. And we've worked really hard over the last couple of years, and you've helped with big chunks of that. Is we talked about accountability and fairness. How do you know? Well, you have to know how the book's distributed, how the activities are. So have a policy and know your numbers.
All right, everybody. I am joined here today with a lovely crowd. It's our client of the quarter. We have Pilkey, Hopping, and Ekberg, better known as PHE. Well, that's what I call you guys because it's a mouthful to say the whole thing out. You could also be a law firm. You could be a million different things, but we like PHE. So I'm joined here by Lacey Moyer and Reed Ekberg and Stephen Harrington Dakota, also known as the Diva of Insurance, who is located how far away from these guys, Stephen? What's the proximity?
6.5 miles, maybe 7.
Is that because you rated
about a 14-minute drive.
Is that because you rated Reed's wardrobe today so that you two are matching?
Yeah. I went and looked through the office window and then went and changed just so we could match.
In the comments, you all can put who wore it better, who wore it for the competition. So why don't we start, Reed? Tell us a little bit about the agency, because I think you guys have such a cool history, and I'm going there. I'm always a little bit like, I kind of want to dive through all the history books there, but I never have any time. So one day you might just see me in the lunchroom.
There is a lot of history, and we do have the book of old stuff you can go through anytime you stop by with policies that go back a long ways. In 1896, my great-grandfather started selling insurance policies out of a store in downtown Tacoma, and we're still here today. 128 years later, we're a fourth-generation family-owned firm with offices in Tacoma and Gig Harbor and a great staff that does commercial, personal, and benefits. But it's a long history. It's something that we're proud of to keep going.
I wonder, what was it you said your great-great-grandfather? Is it
my great-grandfather, Frank Ekberg?
Great-grandfather. So I wonder do you know how he got into insurance? Like what motivated him to start?
Yeah, we do have some of his story that we got him to write down. He immigrated from Sweden in the 1880s, and when he paid off his debts in New York, he had $2.50 to his name. And then he kind of worked his way across the country where he could find work, and eventually made it to Tacoma, which was the end of the railroad at the time, so he couldn't go any further. And he worked as a Tacoma City policeman for a while, and then they opened a store, and the store sold newspapers, gifts, tourist type stuff, and they sold some of the things to the Swedish community here. And he started selling life insurance policies out of the back of the store, and then decided he liked that business model better than the store, and bought his partner out of the store and founded Frank Ekberg and Company. And then his son Dave, he had 3 kids, and Dave would go on to work for him. That's my grandfather. And then he had 2 kids, one being my father, Steve, who came to work here in the 70s, and then I joined the firm in 2008.
That's cool. That's super cool story. So insurance found him. And then found
well, he chose that business. It's been a good one for the long haul.
Better than selling tchotchkes to tourists, Reed, yeah?
You might, yes, I agree with that. And, what a blessing to give your whole family, right? To have that many generations involved in going from there. And so then, Lacey, why don't you share, how did you get involved in this whole scenario? So I'm guessing that you weren't selling Swedish gifts.
No, not selling anything, actually. I was looking for a part-time job. I was going to the University of Washington in Tacoma and looking for a part-time job. And it was kind of almost a 6 degrees of separation sort of thing. My mom knew someone that knew someone that knew someone that was working for PHE. So I found myself, in the afternoons answering the phones. So I just would come in each day, answer the phones, do a little bit of admin work, and here 20 years later now, partner here with Reed and growing PHE.
So how do you make the leap from partner, I'm answering phones part-time, right? I would love to hear how this all happened, right? Because it's there's so many people I think that are young in this industry, Lacey, and that's kind of why I want to make sure we talk about it. And I think they're trying to figure out, is this my career? Is this just a job? What does this look like? And I think you've got such a cool story. Maybe you could speak to people listening hey, This is a really great career. And just to show over 20 years that you could be an owner of a business, starting answering phones is, I think, impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix of a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work. So, just answering the phones, that's kind of where I started, just to have, a job while I was going to college to pay expenses. But then when I went to graduate, they asked me if I wanted to stay on. And, I had these big grand plans of working for the State Department and traveling worldwide and stuff like that. But as many of us that are in insurance know, once you're in, you kind of get stuck, and for good reason, like in a good way, because it is a really stable industry. There's a lot of satisfaction in helping people understand things that are really complicated. So, I stayed on, I supported the benefits department for a couple of years, and then someone left. They asked me, hey, do you want to try sales? And I'm like, why not? So tried that and kind of built a book from there. And, then in 2017, my predecessor, who built the benefits department back in the 1980s, decided to retire, and I took over from there.
That's awesome. So
I just got to say, she's put in the work. That's how she's done it.
Yeah, it is hard work.
It's hard. She's done every job. She doesn't say no. She'll tackle any challenge. She's worked very hard to get where she is, and she's a great partner, and we wouldn't be successful without her.
And I'll be honest, I still to this day, if someone's out, I will go answer the phone. Like, looking at the front desk, I'm happy to be the receptionist. There's no charge to them.
No job is too good for you.
No, it's about
Great
being a
attitude.
team.
I love that.
Wherever you need to step in.
But I think you guys both hit on something. Like, do you both identify as salespeople, or do you because that's a big word. You said hey, I started sales. I think sales turns a lot of people off, right? Like the S word is controversial. It's not necessarily to me, but how do you guys identify sales in your agency? I don't think that you guys are vicious sharks, cold calling a bunch of people, right?
No, we don't have the boiler pit or a huge sales crush. We've grown over time, and we've grown by being a strong firm, having a good reputation in the agency, getting good relationships with customers and building referrals, and being part of the community, not being out there just trying to make the next sale.
I will say for me too, I really did enter that full sales producer role, and the term sales was really not meant for me. I had to do a real big mental shift on the word sales, as many people do. And I still tell my team to this day, it's about being a good advisor and really talking to people about what is out there and how it can benefit them, as opposed to, and giving them the choice. It's their choice at the end of the day, educating them, giving them the pros and the cons about what the products are and, why they might want to consider it. And we have people that are, want to have as many insurance products as they can because it's a peace of mind decision for them. It's a comfort thing. They want that, offer it to them. Right. Versus other people might be very frugal. They might want to take more risk. And it's a huge range of people, I find. So once I made that shift and really started focusing on the education component and letting them make the best decision for them, that changed everything. It's so easy to bring up products now. Any kind of product, I'm looking for that problem to solve that they need.
Well, I think one thing that's super cool about you guys is you really do care about the team that you have and your clients, right? So, it's always stuck out that you want all of your team members to have a good work-life balance. You want them to all have the right tools to be successful and do their job. And you don't shy away from training somebody new on the industry or insurance, right? It's okay. We all learned somehow, some way. I mean, Reed, it was literally born into him. So I'm not sure, Reed, did you know how to read a policy at 8? Were you going into show and tell with an insurance policy, or?
They didn't force me to do that, but I do cringe when I drive down the street and catch myself saying things I heard my dad say when he was driving me around. So. Just I couldn't avoid it.
But it makes sense, right? It's now I get it. I remember my mom never wanted to put the radio on in the car because at the end of the day you're just spent. And I was like, I hope I never turn into a grumpy old person that doesn't want to listen to music. And now I'm like, silence is so nice. I was like, I understand, Mom. I was a child without responsibilities. So tell us a little bit about, how you kind of handle like finding good people and strategically working with them. Because I think, you've developed new roles along our time together. You've identified like, hey, this is how we need to think about things. And, really, I mean, just seeing a couple people on the team that stick out, like we're just barely with you guys for a couple months, just got licensed. And now, running whole books pretty quickly and dynamically. I can think of one. I won't name names so that all the recruiters don't listen to this and steal any humans. But, there are some people out there that I think have done an awesome job. So tell us a little bit about like your approach. Like, how do you look to see are these our people to come on board? Because I think you have such a cool culture that you really work hard to protect it.
Thanks. Yeah, I can speak a little bit to the design, and then maybe Lacey can share some of the strategies we developed on identifying the candidates and testing them out. But one of the things we looked at a couple of years ago is everyone in the industry was saying, and it's so hard to find talent, so hard to find talent. We looked at our organizational structure and it was pretty flat. I mean, there was a couple managers, a couple producers, and account managers. No, that we purposely built some newer entry-level roles that were designed to, once we found someone we liked that had the character, that had the values we were looking for, we bring them in and we could teach them insurance. And so we created those roles, and we now had a couple people go through those chairs, and some have been successful and turned into great account managers, and some weren't successful and moved on to something else. But it was a great way to get them in the door, see if they're a fit with our organization, and then build them up from within.
Yeah, just to kind of add to that too, Reed mentioned the core values. We've kind of have, and most companies I think do have generally what their values are, but in working with you, Kelly, in the last couple of years, we've actually wrote those down, and it really helped clarified a lot of things, and it really helped some of our hiring practices. So we've really, like Reed said, we've started looking several years ago. We started hiring people that didn't have any insurance experience, and really started focusing on trying to find the people that were the right culture fit for us. And defining those values really have made it so much more clear now. So when we are interviewing, we're looking for specific things, on both sides, negative and positive, that really tie to those core values. So several years ago, we were starting to hire people with no insurance experience, trying to build them up. So, you can find the right personality, the right culture fit. We've now seen, needing some of that experience and bringing that back in. But in the hiring practice, we typically do 2 or 3 interviews. And the first interview is 15 to 30 minute virtual interview that all we're looking for is the culture fit on those core values. Okay. So are they going to be a good culture fit? Are they going to be, some of our values are hard work, do they want to have fun? Do they want to thrive? Are they caregivers, right? That's a big one, because that's a lot of what we do in our industry. Are they committed to going the extra mile for coworkers and for our clients? Because that's everything to our industry. So that's really what we've now taken that approach, is that's all we look for in the first one. And initially it was really hard because we were learning, right? But Reed looked this number up not that long ago. I think we've hired 14 new people in the last, 5 years, Reed? Yeah. So we've got a lot of practice in the last couple of years, because we've been growing so much that we've really been able to fine tune it. And I will say I think the most important thing that we've kind of learned recently, if that person is not a 9 or a 10 in that interview, they're an absolute no. Just move on.
We like to say they're on their best they're the best they're ever going to be, like in that moment, right? Like, right. Their hair is done, like they're on their game, and it's harder as things go on. So yeah, I totally identify with what you're saying there. And, insurance is one of those things it doesn't always attract, like, everyone's not like, I think when you get into insurance, you have to kind of be called into it that's why I'm always so curious how people get into it. Cause I think it finds us. It doesn't necessarily jump out.
Fall into it, or you're born into it.
Yeah, like we even talk about how like non-licensed roles, like do we put insurance in it? Do we put like processing support? Like and don't mention it's for insurance or like everybody for some reason people want to work at like a dentist office at the front desk and I'm like, why? Like I would that would seems like horrible. Like I don't like going to the dentist. Why would I want to live at the dentist 40 hours a week? But people do it. People do it. So let's talk a little bit about, hey, thinking through all of the things. Where do you see the industry going next? Right. So this is like the wild card. There's some people that have these very like dramatic ideas that like we'll be in driverless cars and there'll be no such thing as insurance and up to the idea like in Lacey's World and Benefits, like, well, we'll go to a government system and there really won't be the need for it anymore. And in the way that it is now. So I'm curious, just from your two, where do you see insurance going?
I feel old now, but I think I've been in it long enough to hear a couple of versions of what's going to kill insurance. The internet was going to kill insurance, and it didn't. And
we were never going to make money on auto insurance because cars were going to be so safe that it would be just like so cheap.
And bots were going to write homeowners policies in 6 questions. No, I can do it in 5. There's a wide distribution of insurance and insurance needs, and I think time has borne out that there is room for different platforms within the marketplace. There will be people that want quick and easy and online, and that's fine. That'll continue, but that's not what we're focused on. There's a segment of the marketplace that wants an advisor, someone they can talk to and have questions because we're protecting people's assets, their homes, their most important things. So there will always be a segment in the market, I believe, for the type of clients that we're seeking out, and we're building our agency around delivering the service to those clients.
Yeah, I love that. And I talked to a young producer and he's like, I just even question if we'll even be here. AI will take over. And I was just like, I still have to correct a lot of things that ChatGPT sends me back. So I think we're okay.
We are still all right.
Yeah. And like lemonade hasn't turned a profit yet, guys. So like, until we get there.
And people like the human interaction, right? Some people want to do business with a robot. That's great. But most people like people, and I think that's what you're building your business around is really focusing on the relationship and the experience the client's getting as they're interacting with the team at PHE.
Yes. Lacey, what do you think in benefits? Where do you see it all going?
Well, I will say that in 2012, when the Affordable Care Act finally was implemented, I actually went and got my certified financial planning, my CFP, because at that time, just like the internet taking over, we thought, what's going to happen to health insurance, right? But, even with that being said, you look at Medicare, for example, right? Even if we go to some kind of universal system, we still have a ton of Medicare clients, and they're probably the most confused. Honestly, it's probably the most complicated product for people than any other thing that we sell. So they're the most, happy group of people after we meet with them. They're just so happy they have someone that can help them figure it out. So honestly, I'm right there with Reed. There's always going to be a place for us. It might just, adapt and change, and we just have to keep up with that and plan for that. But there's always going to be a place for us.
Right. I mean, think about it. I mean, Reed, when you first got into insurance, were you using like rating books?
The old timers around here bring those out and show them, tell us stories about manually typing the endorsements on forms in triplicate and all those. And we've still got all that.
Why are you calling me old, Reed? Why are you calling me old?
Experienced.
Steven still has his. It's all bound. It's got like a paper like grocery bag around it, just like the kids used to do.
The printout VIN guide that got updated every year was a very useful tool up until just a couple of years ago when the internet finally got it right.
I do have a copy of Rough Notes here.
From like
14. If anyone.
Okay. 1914.
Adjustment for horses. That's in here.
All right.
Yeah.
That need to go to the National Archives. I can't believe they'd allow you with such a national treasure over there. So I think one of the things that you guys have done is done a great job. And, this is a hot topic of like the next generation trying to come into insurance. So, there's thoughts of like, we have the silver tsunami where there's going to be a whole lot of people retiring out of insurance just by their age bracket, where it's just their time to go and be grandparents and live their lives. And getting new people in. And so I think there's a lot of questions that people have about this next generation coming kind of up through the ranks. And they're very different. Like I call them like the OGs. You've been in insurance more than 15 years. Your workhorses, you show up at 8, you leave at 5, you take your lunch break, you're doing your thing. You're like an insurance encyclopedia. You're confident, and they've seen a lot of changes, right? When they first started, they were probably like an agent's assistant. And now today they're really running whole books. And then, they like to get on the phone, and maybe technology is not there, the easy part, and change is harder for them. And we got the green team where, they love structure and they want the forms and they want the processes, but getting on the phone, not so much their cup of tea sometimes, right? Or, coming in right at 8 o'clock or whatever the start time is. It's like more like 8:07, like there's just a little gray area there, but they stay late. It's just those crisp lines aren't quite like the same, because the OG generation had to like punch the clock, right? Like come in and put your time card in, and now things are so different. And the work from home, I think, really got there, where like that OG generation was like, get me back in the office. And the young generation's like, I don't have to wear pants. Things are great. So, how do you guys kind of handle like those different generations? Because you do have a wide variety at the agency. And what's kind of your approach to maybe, to me, that next generation, we have to solidify them as insurance careers, because you spend a lot of time training people and getting them up to speed. And we need them desperately. Otherwise, Reed and I are going to have to create an insurance robot. And I don't know, Reed, if we're up to that challenge just yet.
Well, figuring out that one.
I mean, I think, Kelly, that it's looking at each person and figuring out what's important to them, right? And it starts from the hiring process, trying to find the people that are that right culture fit. And then from there, if you have someone that has the right values of the company, it doesn't matter, at least in our opinion, where they're working from. Right. If they're getting their job done and the quality of the work is there, then, where is that work-life balance? And just like you said, our OGs definitely back in the office. They love being there. It's how they show that they work hard. And it's important it's important to them. That's how they view their world. Whereas we found that it can be very different, and it just depends on the person and what they need. And we've just really tried to adapt to that. And we did find some challenges, like every company has, with, kind of making those changes to remote work. But I think at the end of the day, what's really important is really clear expectations. And so we've had to make some adjustments, in the last year, where we are getting a lot more clear about what is expected of them. And then from there, just accountability, what if they're not meeting those expectations. And we just really believe in a hybrid model as well. We do have some people that are 100% remote, but our culture really is about the team and working together and the people. And so we do have people that can come back into the office, because we have found it's just not the right fit for everyone. They may want it, but it's just, it's really hard for some people to be productive outside the office.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's just kind of like, hey, let's do it. And then we'll make adjustments along the way. And I'm sure some people we called back in were like, kind of like after that adjustment period comes back, they're like, I actually do better in the office. Yeah, thank you.
And I think what I found from the whole remote work experience is that it's a technology, and a technology doesn't change your people. It just amplifies what's already there. So if they have skills and the capacities for the remote work, we can find the balance for them. But the part that Lacey spoke to, the accountability, is the biggest piece that we're continuing to work on. When you have the OG that sees that I'm here to demonstrate my value, and I do that by being here first and even last. And you've got another employee that doesn't see it that way. When they don't see things the same way, they both think they're working harder than their peers. And everybody's here working hard, and we need clarity and accountability to keep the team together, those different perceptions.
Oh my God. You just brought back like PTSD during COVID, when some people were in the office and people were home, and it's like, well, I do the mail. And I was just like, okay. The people from home don't have to do the mail. I'm like, okay. We'll figure that out. We take the walk-ins. Okay. When somebody's walking in, do they take the phones? Yes. Like, okay. I think, it's a whole different thing of and again, like I think I'm not particularly a big work from home person. I like going to my office and it just helps separate my brain. Like I'm home, I'm at work, but I definitely do work from home sometimes too when it's just easy and convenient and makes the world better, So there's all different ways to do it. I would say, what advice would you give agency owners really struggling with the work from home thing? Because we still have people that are really anti that whole thing. Like, nope, they have to be in the office. Like, do you have any tips or advice for an agency owner that maybe might need to have more open mind on it?
I think you have to have a policy. It's table stakes now. If you want to recruit good talent, it's one of the first things candidates ask us about. And you have to know your numbers and your metrics. And we've worked really hard over the last couple of years, and you've helped with big chunks of that. Is we talked about accountability and fairness. How do you know? Well, you have to know how the book's distributed, how the activities are. So have a policy and know your numbers. Lacey, do you have anything to that?
Yeah, I would just say that I have a couple really amazing people that are 100% remote. They're amazing. They are my rock stars. I just took a vacation and just came back, and I feel like I just walked in where I left off. I didn't have a huge load, right, to jump into. It was amazing, So you're losing that. You're missing out on that if you can't have an open mind to that flexibility. You're going to miss out on some of that great talent if you won't even consider it at all.
Yeah, to me, it's a trust thing, right? Like, are you going to figure out how to trust, or are you going to figure out how not to trust people? And the reality is like you could be in, and you just came back from vacation, right? And like everybody could be coming in late, or everybody could be doing the things. And the advice I always give agency owners too is a little bit like, if you're hitting your numbers, it's a lot easier to let some things slide. If we're off track, that's when like, hey, that's the alert that, hey, we got to go figure everything out. And, there might be some need to hold more accountability during those times. But as long as all the numbers are good, most people are happy and healthy, right?
Yeah, we definitely take that motto too. Like, hey, if you're getting your work done, numbers are great, agency's growing, I'm not having to get involved in your work. I don't care what you're doing all day long, just get it done and make sure it doesn't end up on my desk.
Well, and I will say to people who struggle, like with the team members that struggle from work, some people working from home, I always say, like, you know what? Just mind your business, right? Like stay focused on your work and your clients, and let the leader of the team deal with making sure everybody's happy, healthy, and equal. But like there could be pieces of the story you don't know about that's not your beeswax, right? And if we all want to spend all of our time like policing everybody else, don't we have clients to serve? I bet you they could do a renewal review call in that same amount of time that everyone's policing each other. Into that one. So one of the things I think you guys did too during your time together was also started, working with virtual assistants. And it sounds like, based on some of our last communications, like you've really seen that kind of take route and help. Because that's the thing, that's another agency. People are like, I don't know, it didn't work, or what would they do? So maybe you could share a little bit about how you guys view the virtual assistant model.
Yeah, it's an important part of our model going forward. And we definitely, kind of slowly wandered into it, and with a couple different variations, but I think we're really finding the right setup for us, and going forward, that's going to be here to stay. There's always objections to any change, and I think you got to communicate through them and get over them and show them the value of what we're bringing. And that is that there's a lot of just tasks that we don't need tying up their time and their desks, and it's going to free them up to talk to the customers more, to build those relationships, to do the high value added tasks. There's different models, there's different ways to do it, but I think it's here to stay.
Do you have anything, Lacey, on that one?
Pretty much the same thing is that, we just found where can our employees best use their time? And Reed kind of mentioned that, but basically we are looking to offload all those non-licensed things. So anything that kind of falls into that category, and it's a process, doesn't all happen at once, but we've taken the step in and trying to look at that. And we've found a couple of great VAs, and they are, hard workers, and the cost is less expensive for us. So we can really take some of those tasks that is weighing down our account managers and offload them to someone that, is very meticulous and can work through all those things in a very quick amount of time, because they're typically, right as of right now, they're very routine tasks, right? Do the same thing over and over and over. And then that allows our account managers to really provide the value with our clients, having conversations, about how do we protect them. So, it's definitely here to stay, and we are going to continue to build on it going forward.
I always even with RVs, I'm always I'll send something and I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. I need it by Thursday. And literally within 7 minutes, it's here it is. I'm like,
Yeah.
This is refreshing. No, I have some time if you need other things done. I'm like, okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. So, I don't know. I think a lot of agencies hold off thinking that they'll be oh, I'll wait till I have all my processes, or I'll wait till it's perfect. But I think I always like to say your first VA is your first boyfriend or girlfriend. You're going to learn a lot. Just go, work through it. And then it all kind of comes together at the right time, when you're ready. But there's a process to it, and you kind of don't know what you don't know. Right. But it's also cool how cool they are. Right. I don't, ours tell us what they're doing over the weekend. And one is he's going to try to go to every museum in the Philippines. And I'm like, that's impressive. I was thinking about Netflix, but you're a better person than me. So why don't we talk next about renewal reviews? I know you all love them so much, right? And I know, we go through this with lots and lots of agencies about the need to make them. They're not easy to get in. They're not easy to go through it. But I know that was one of the biggest things that you guys were pumped and excited about. So tell, what's your thought process on renewal reviews and why they're an important component at PHE?
Right from the start of the program, that was the thing that jumped out to me. That's I can't wait till we're doing this and it's in. And it's a process to get there, from building the time management skills to have the capacity to make the calls, to getting in the habit of doing it, to building up and overcoming the resistance of making all the calls. And we're now over a year into it. So we're getting to the point where people are making their second calls. It's been a process, but we've seen the great results. Initially on the calls, I kept having conversations with employees who come in, I have all these problems. I have this problem that came out of the renewal review calls. But you're fixing them now. It's not a problem. This is an opportunity to solve this and be proactive, instead of, if this information came to light when the claim happened, then it would be a very big problem. But you got the chance to update their location now, and good job. So there was that perception that is going to create more work for me because I got all these problems. We had to overcome that and show people that you're doing a tremendous service to the clients by fixing these things and getting the policies right. And now we're over a year into it. We're starting to see and hear the stories from making that second call, and the customers, oh yeah, I remember, we talked about that last year, and we made those updates, and let's go ahead and add that umbrella now, or oh no, I'm all good. You took everything last year. Thanks for the call. And we're starting to see that all the hard work that's been put in pay off.
Oh, I think that's so super cool. And I love what you said too, they're out there now. And some of it, you guys purchased some books of business. So this is your first pass really through some of those accounts, right? And some of it is the client might think that they told you, but they never did. So it feels like, oh my gosh, this is more work. But sometimes clients don't tell you everything either, right? So as you're doing the review, it's not always that maybe you guys did something wrong. Sometimes it's just the client never shared, that they somehow quadrupled their sales. And to me right now, I think companies and commercial lines are going to audit more and more and more. And so by making these accounts right now, clients who just haven't had an audit in 8 years, I think you're going to see a much happier client experience than when that audit goes through. That's my personal thought on it. What do you think, Lacey? Lacey's brimming to talk about renewal reviews. They're the bane of her existence. For 3/4 of the year when it's not health insurance season.
Right. And no, I just basically reiterate what Reed said. I think they're so valuable, and it's so critical in order to avoid losing clients. Right now in a hard market, it's really important to get in front of that client before those non-renewals happen or, large rate increases come. And, I look at the numbers all the time, and the number of times a client is actually answering the phone is pretty small. So just making that call and leaving a voicemail, I'm the type of person that I probably don't have time to call that person back, and I'd be the one not calling them back. But just knowing that I got a call and a voicemail from somebody just puts them in the back of my head. Like, oh yeah, I hear from my insurance agent all the time. I might not call them back, but
When you got that renewal, you're like, oh, they called me. This must be what's going on because that number looks different.
Yeah. So I think those are critical. Really making sure and, trying to make sure we hit all of those calls has been challenging, but we're getting there. And kind of going back to the VA, we've used the VA to kind of help get to that point where we can get all of those calls made.
Yeah. And I just encourage everybody. So we did a speech in North Carolina recently, and apparently someone came up in the lunch line. They didn't realize they were talking to one of our clients and was like, can you believe this girl wants us to call every renewal? What is she on? And they're like, we do that. What are you talking about? We've used a pro. We do that. He's like, it really, really does work very well. And he's just like walked away. He was like, it's just like, what? Might want to grab his name and number. Maybe someday I'll want to sell, because I just can't get that's why we exist, is to help people. So when we're only taking people calling us with, their needs, we forget about all the other people who don't know that they need us, because maybe they didn't tell us that they got a diamond tennis bracelet, or, maybe they didn't tell us that they've doubled their sales and they don't think that it implies with insurance. Like, insurance is inherently complicated. I think that's why people want to have an agent. When they come to an independent agent, they want that relationship. They don't want a website. They want something different. And I had one agency when I had this epiphany. He's like, our sales team takes new business all the time because people haven't heard from their agent. And then we, at that new business meeting, say, we're going to be different, but we never are until today. Like, so today is the first day that when the sales team sells, we will actually be able to deliver on what we're telling them. And I was like, it was a little choppy of delivery, but I followed where he was going. I was like, oh, that's a very good point. So, Stephen, did you have any questions for Reed or Lacey?
What was the biggest takeaway, or what was the biggest change you saw in your team with everything you went through? I know it's been a 2-year-long process, but what's the biggest wow moment that you had with everything we did together?
So for me, the values, and it's not one moment, it's been the number of times we'd come back to it. I'll be honest. Yeah, I wasn't a big mission statement on the wall kind of guy beforehand. I thought, we'd spend so much time arguing over whether to say shall or will that I didn't want to put the time in that. But I knew in my mind, what my values are, but you have to say them out loud and put them down on paper. And then when they're out there and you use them to make tough decisions, you show your staff, hey, when I've got a conflict, I'm going to look at it through the lens of my commitments here and my integrity. And I'm going to use these values to guide my decision. And you empower them to do that when they have tough decisions on their desk. And that's been the most impactful to me.
I think what I found with the team was in the time management section. Just the shock from people when you tell them they need to have 0 emails and 0 overdue activities, and they're just like, that's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to do that. And they do it, and they get there, and they're like, this is amazing. It's so freeing. I feel like a new person when I can see my whole inbox at the same time. It's just every single time, they're just shocked by that. So when we see that kind of getting out of control, we remind them of how good that feels to, get that under control. But yeah, that's probably what I think the moment I think I saw the team really, react to the positivity of what we were doing.
It's so funny you say that, because then people get like, oh no, I've got 15 emails in my inbox. I need to talk to you later. I got to get rid of them. It becomes like a damn, I
don't have time for the office gossip today. I need to get my test done.
Yes. Just stay focused. My favorite moment was actually when you guys all dressed up like a duck, a hand, and what was it? The duck?
TV.
Yeah.
What?
Like,
Fun.
so there is a photo. It's coming for your client of the quarter plaque. That is actually, I have to ship it to you. So we had it. We added a few things to it, but there's these guys on how we were there on Halloween. I was Barbie. Ken was Stephen was also Barbie.
I was Ken. I
You
was
were
Ken.
Ken. And then these guys show up. Reed was somehow an inflatable hand. Lacey,
Raise your hand.
you were the duck.
I was the duck. Scuba diving. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the non-scuba diving duck. And then Sarah, the personal lines manager, was the frog. And so they were the team APP characters from some of our programs. So you guys definitely won Halloween costume of the year, in my opinion.
That was very fun.
Our clients take it seriously. We had another agency that did a Christmas tree decorating contest in all their offices, and someone gathered all the frogs and had an eat the frog Christmas tree. So my judging, of course, went to that one.
Yeah.
Tried to win one of the judges over by some technique. So no, we appreciate you guys. It's been awesome. And I think, now it's like, hey, it's new hires can come on and learn all the ways that you're doing things and finding the best people. And growing a business is not easy, especially at the size that you are, right? Sometimes it feels like you're running through peanut butter. But I think the hard market, you guys are well primed for and prepared for. And I'm sure you talked to some other agency owners that are really getting kind of walloped by the hard market. And Lacey always would joke, because being in benefits, she's like, what are you guys complaining about? We've been doing this for years now. And the benefit side, like, grow up. It's like we do it in person. We literally sit with the person and tell them what their new benefits are. And then, let us know what you want to do.
Pretty much.
You had your time during healthcare reform, so you got them shepherding the way. But no, thank you guys for your time today. We appreciate it. Thanks for being great clients. And we look forward to seeing how you guys keep going over the next several years.
Thanks, Kelly and Stephen. We really appreciated working with you.
Yes. All right, guys. Well,
I found my rate manual.
Good.
I was all within like arm span of you. Like you're like a Mary Poppins pulling up like, hey, look at this is the first
short rate wheel, just in case the question comes up on a 5-year policy. What's the short rate at year 2.75?
Yeah, we got one of those somewhere too.
I'm gonna go find it now for you, Steve. All right, everybody. Signing off. Thanks for listening today, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Thanks, guys.